Discover 6 shocking mistakes seniors make with garlic that could transform their health forever. Martha's kitchen was a fragrant sanctuary of simmering garlic and herbs, a world built around her unwavering commitment to health. But just days after her routine doctor visit, that same kitchen felt like a battleground of conflicting emotions. Accustomed to thriving on homemade garlic-infused pasta, she now grappled with the alarming news of weight loss and fatigue that hung heavily over her like a dark cloud. In her heart, she firmly believed garlic held the key to her vitality, but doubt began creeping in, threatening to unravel her steadfast resolve. Am I really wielding the power of garlic, or has it become my downfall? She wondered, her fingers trembling slightly as she chopped the pungent bulb. The truth tugged at her, a conflict between her enduring love for nature's remedies and the harsh reality of her body's signals. Her faith in garlic had become not just a culinary choice, but a powerful symbol of her independence and identity. I have lived and thrived on this all my life. Why question it now? Yet, uncertainty buzzed in her mind, suffocating the joy of her favorite dish. Into this aromatic chaos entered Jake, her grandson and savvy nutritionist, armed with a potpourri of facts and suggestions. "Grandma, couldn't we consider a little more balance?" he suggested gently, though tinged with a hint of skepticism. This was the moment where the tension spiraled. Martha's face twisted with indignation. "Why should I abandon what has served me well for years?" Her voice, vibrant yet trembling, echoed as they feasted on the very garlic-infused pasta she championed. Each bite felt like a battle line drawn between her cherished traditions and Jake's logical, fact-driven world. As laughter filled the room, a subtle tension rippled through the air. Behind the smiles lay the unspoken fear. Her grandson's concern clashed against her pride. He watched her stubbornly insist on garlic pills, a move that seriously unnerved him. "Is that really the best approach, Grandma?" The question hung in the air like a fog, laden with an emotional weight that suffocated the meal's laughter. What followed was a skirmish of wills, a dialogue riddled with love, desperation, and familial duty, each response echoing with a fierce desire for control mixed with unavoidable anxiety. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. But the episode of contention was far from over. Martha was resolute and, unbeknownst to her, she began to make tragic errors in her garlic-loving fervor, overindulging in the pungent bulb, neglecting to prepare it correctly, dismissing her grandson's quiet pleas for moderation. The twinkle in her eye began to dim. Days later, an unsettling abdominal pain crippled her. The hospital room echoed her fears, the slick steel instruments and white coats pushing her to confront the reality of her choices. The clashing ideals of her world and Jake's pressed against her heart, forcing her to grapple with the fear of losing her autonomy. The garlic she adored had crossed a line, morphing from a symbol of health to a pitfall. In that moment, Martha stood at a precipice, confronted with the harsh truth of her health battles and the loving hands of her grandson willing to guide her. Yet, would she choose to embrace a new understanding or hold on tighter to what she knew? As her family crowded around her bedside, a sudden knock on the door shattered the thick atmosphere, ushering in a revelation that could change everything. The door creaked open, breaking the heaviness that enveloped the room. In stepped Dr. Evans, a gentle yet assertive figure, holding a clipboard that contained not just assessments but the weight of Martha's future. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the anxiety swirling within her. As he approached, the familial warmth faded, replaced by a clinical tension that filled the air. "Martha, I understand you've been experiencing some troubling symptoms," he began, his voice steady. Her heart raced as she nodded, struggling to maintain her composure. This was the moment, she realized, where vulnerability collided with the defensive walls she had built over decades. "We need to discuss your dietary habits," Dr. Evans continued, his expression serious but softened by understanding. Martha's mind raced back to the garlic-laden recipes that had defined her kitchen, her sanctuary. It's not just about garlic, but rather how it fits into the bigger picture of your nutritional needs. The word stung. Garlic had always been the hero in her health narrative. Yet here she was, facing the potential truth that she had become a tragic character in her own story. She fought the impulse to defend her culinary choices, knowing deep down that she was at a crossroads. Your blood work indicated some concerning trends, the doctor pressed on, oblivious to the internal turmoil plaguing her. As he elaborated on the importance of balance and moderation, Martha felt the weight of obligation settle on her shoulders, her identity wrapped tightly around the culinary choices she had cherished. Jake, watching the exchange, leaned forward, his brow knitted with concern. "Grandma, it's okay to adjust. Let us figure this out together." The plea in his voice was an anchor in her stormy sea. Martha looked from the doctor to her grandson, caught in a tug-of-war between pride and practicality. "Adjust," she echoed, the word feeling foreign. It symbolized surrender, a relinquishment of control. But as her diagnosis loomed, that surrender began to feel like an emerging opportunity rather than a defeat. Perhaps her fervent quest for health needed a broader perspective. Days turned into nights as Martha began her slow recovery, surrounded by machines that hummed a continuous reminder of her vulnerability. With every passing moment, the idea of reevaluating her culinary legacy took root in her mind. She had always been a fighter, but the question now was whether embracing change would empower her further. Glimmers of determination flashed in her eyes as she pictured her kitchen a place laden with memories, yet suffocated by stubbornness. The thought of blending her beloved garlic with other vibrant ingredients, creating a new identity for her meals, ignited something within her. In the quietude of her thoughts, the pieces of her story started to rearrange. She visualized vibrant produce, colorful spices, and the tantalizing aromas not just of garlic, but of an entire suite of healthy options. "I don't have to abandon my love for garlic," she mused internally. "I can evolve it." The decision that stirred inside her danced between fear and hope, a fragile yet powerful thread binding her to new possibilities. She sat up slowly, determination rising as she called for Jake. "I want to learn. We can do this together," she declared. "It's time for a fresh start." Just then, another knock interrupted their embrace of change. The door opened, revealing a figure that none expected, an old neighbor who had once shared cooking wisdom over steaming pots and fiery debates about pepper content. Would she bring back memories of the past, or perhaps lessons that redefined Martha's culinary future? The air shimmered with a sense of urgency and promise. Martha's journey was just beginning, but was she ready for what lay ahead? Martha glanced at the door, curiosity weaving itself into her growing anticipation. The figure stood framed in the doorway, their familiar silhouette stoking the embers of nostalgia. It was Helen, her neighbor from 2 doors down, known for her own culinary flair and eclectic spice rack. The years may have altered the contours of their relationship, but the past lingered like a forgotten recipe waiting to be rewritten. "Surprise, Martha. I heard you've been unwell, and I thought I'd check in," Helen exclaimed with an infectious warmth, a tray of vibrant fruits and herbs cradled in her arms. Martha's heart leapt at the sight. This wasn't just a visit. It felt like a lifeline thrown into the turbulent waters of her culinary identity. "Martha, darling, I have some wonderful ideas for transitioning your meals. No need to shun garlic, but let us talk about how we can use it in ways you never imagined," Helen continued, her enthusiasm rejuvenating Martha's resolve. As they settled into the kitchen, a swirl of thoughts clouded Martha's mind. She felt a familiar rush of pride as the aroma of garlic wafted up from the oven, mingling with the fragrances of fresh basil and ripe tomatoes. Yet this pride was tinged with vulnerability, forcing her to confront her past culinary choices without the comfort of blind faith. "Let us explore the balance of flavors," Helen suggested, slicing a potent lemon while tossing together a medley of colorful vegetables. Each chop resonated in Martha's ears like a clock ticking down to an inevitable change. "We can create dishes that still honor your love for garlic, but enhance them with fresh elements. You'll see variety is the spice of life." Martha hesitated, her senses in conflict. "But that's what I'm afraid of, Helen. Will my garlic recipes still taste like me?" The self-doubt creased her brow as she thought of her heritage, her family recipes, the history imbued in each meal. Helen smiled knowingly. Of course they will. The essence of who you are as a cook doesn't vanish with new ingredients. It evolves. Think of it as a kaleidoscope. Each shift in perspective adds more color and depth to your culinary expression. The imagery struck a chord deep within Martha. Could this be a chance to not only redefine her relationship with food, but also reshape her identity? The concept ignited a flickering flame of possibility. She could be the architect of her meals and health journey. Over the next few hours, Martha immersed herself in the process, experimenting with Helen's suggestions. They laughed over garlic-infused lemon dressings and roasted vegetables, unraveling the knots of her anxieties. With every bite, she felt the walls around her kitchen crumble, revealing pathways to new flavors. For the first time, change tasted sweet, yet doubt lingered in the corners of her mind. Was she truly skilled enough to craft these new identities for her meals, or would the fear of failure hold her back? Helen picked up on her hesitation, glancing over with a knowing expression. Martha, this is just the beginning. Challenge yourself. Make a mistake today. Learn from it. What Helen proposed felt daunting, but a glimmer of excitement also sparked within Martha. The thought of failure transformed from a fearsome specter into a tutor, an aspect of growth she hadn't dared to embrace fully. Emboldened by a cocktail of fear and determination, Martha suddenly envisioned a grand meal to showcase their discoveries. Let us invite Jake over. He should experience this new era of cooking, she exclaimed, her voice threading through the walls of her past. Helen's eyes twinkled with approval. Absolutely, he'll love it. You can show him the thrill of culinary experimentation while grounding him in the traditions you hold dear. The moment glimmered with an intoxicating sense of potential. Martha began to plan every detail, anxious yet determined to present a dish that seamlessly intertwined her legacy with the innovative techniques she was learning that as the day turned to evening. The air in the kitchen buzzed with anticipation. But just as Martha seemed ready to step confidently into this new territory, her phone buzzed violently against the counter. Glancing down, she froze. The name on the screen sent a jolt through her. The relentless worry about facing her own health head-on echoed in her thoughts. Was she truly ready for the trials that awaited her? The question loomed like an unanswered prayer, leaving Martha standing at the threshold of transformation, craving the knowledge she needed for her new chapter, yet hyper-aware of the shadows lurking behind her past. Martha stood frozen, her phone vibrating ominously against the counter. The name flashing across the screen was a ghost of her past, one she had meticulously tried to avoid for months. David, her doctor, the very person who had guided her on this precarious health journey. For a moment, she contemplated avoiding the call altogether, the weight of uncertainty pressing down like a stone. Taking a deep breath, she answered, "Hello? Hi, Martha. I wanted to check in on you after our last appointment." David's voice was calm, yet firm, prompting a wave of guilt to crash over her. "Hi. Yes, I've been trying some new dishes, experimenting a bit," she managed to say, forcing enthusiasm into her voice, even as doubts bubbled beneath the surface. "That's great to hear. But I must remind you of the importance of monitoring your health closely. Have you been keeping track of your symptoms?" His question dug deep, pricking the balloon of confidence that had begun to inflate during her session with Helen. She knew she had drifted away from his recommendations in search of culinary freedom. "I've been inspired. I think I'm ready to embrace some changes, David," she replied, her voice catching slightly. "Food is a powerful ally, but it must come with caution. Transitioning is great, but it needs a diligent approach, especially considering your history," he said, masked concern in his tone. Martha felt her chest tighten, her newfound excitement at risk of unraveling in square inches. "I understand," she mumbled reluctantly, the shadows of her past decisions creeping closer, threatening to snuff out her burgeoning zeal. As she ended the call, the buzz of her kitchen felt muted. Helen noticed, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "What was that about?" "Just the doctor. He's worried I might be overdoing it, that I might not keep track of everything." The heaviness in her chest made her voice waver slightly. "Your health is essential, but don't let fear stifle your creativity," Helen advised, instinctively slicing up fresh herbs with the deft precision of a seasoned chef. "It's all about balance. Why not schedule regular check-ins with him while allowing yourself the freedom to explore? The suggestion struck Martha like a bolt of clarity. A dual approach would allow her to manage her health while still breaking free from her culinary constraints. But how could she ensure this balance? Could she be both accountable to her health and indulge in her passion for cooking? The idea began to take form to document her culinary experiments meticulously and share them with David for feedback. The thought of submitting her creations for review filled her with trepidation, yet excitement flickered behind it. This could transform the uncertainty into a process of empowerment. They can be like recipes in progress, Helen chimed in, piercing through Martha's inner debate. Give him something concrete to assess. It's like a meal that evolves. It requires taste testing to become just right. Taking a deep breath, Martha nodded, the path forward revealing itself in indecision. But what if I fail? What if he doesn't like what I create? Helen stepped closer, her gaze steadying Martha's swirling thoughts. Embrace the fear, Martha. Let it motivate you. Mistakes will teach you to experiment even more boldly. You won't know your limits until you push them. Reinforced by Helen's conviction, Martha felt those knots in her stomach begin to loosen. She was on the brink of so much growth she could innovate while remaining grounded in her own reality. This was her chance to redefine both her cooking and her identity. With renewed determination, she pulled out paper and began to scribble down her goals, meal ideas, health milestones, and a schedule for her check-ins with David. Each letter formed a bridge to a future she had been too frightened to imagine. As she sat there, the scent of herbs and garlic a comforting backdrop, Martha realized that this journey was not just about reinventing her meals, but fully embracing who she was evolving into. It was a fusion of flavors leading to something new. Yet, a familiar echo gnawed at the corners of her confidence, whispering doubts about her ability to navigate this uncharted territory. Was she truly ready to face the vulnerability of growth alongside her fears? Martha's determination solidified into a plan. She would take a leap, testing her concepts with Jake as her first audience. But even as hope kept the flicker alive, the question loomed larger than before: would she succeed in unveiling this new flavor of life? Or would past fears retreat once more into the shadows? The clock struck, its rhythmic sound bringing her back to the moment, a reminder that time waits for no one. With one last glance at her notes, she wondered if this time, she could not only create dishes but truly cook her way into the life she longed to embrace. And as she began drafting her email to Jake, the pulse of possibility both excited and terrified her, igniting the lingering fear that only deepened her intent to move forward. Would the meal transcend culinary boundaries, or leave her tasting bitterness instead of victory? Martha's heart raced as she sat at her kitchen table, staring at the blinking cursor in her email draft to Jake. The fluorescent glow from above mirrored her internal conflict, illuminating the vulnerability she felt. What if her culinary experiments fell flat? What if past mistakes echoed through her current endeavors, leading to another round of defeat? Pushing the thoughts aside, she set her fingers on the keyboard. Why not take that leap? She began typing, furiously pouring her soul into the outline of the dish she'd envisioned. Influenced by her recent travels through the Mediterranean, she had imagined a bright, zesty lemon herb chicken, alongside a vibrant quinoa and roasted vegetable salad. Each word stitched together not just a recipe, but a testament to her growth, a glimpse into the new life she was cultivating. With every keystroke, traces of self-doubt began to fade, replaced instead by an emerging sense of purpose. This was more than merely cooking. It was about reclaiming a narrative that had been overtaken by fear and illness. Martha started to see her culinary practice as a progressive journey rather than a simple act of preparing food. Cooking was her empowerment, a way to assert control over her body, her life, and her health. She paused, glancing at the clock again. Time was fleeting. Deciding she needed to be more than just a passive participant in her health journey, she hit send, her heart thumping wildly. The email was off, and with it, a layer of anxiety peeled away, revealing the raw excitement of sharing her first new dish with someone who mattered. Yet, that fleeting relief was replaced with a swell of anticipation mixed with dread. Would he appreciate the flavors? Would he have constructive feedback, or simply show concern for her health? This was the moment Martha had decided to take, to harness vulnerability and turn it into strength. Just like a meal, she whispered to herself, recalling Helen's words. It requires taste testing to become just right. With her phone still beside her, she contemplated her next step. Seeking validation from someone else had its merits, but what about her own discernment? She needed to set parameters for herself, an accountability system far beyond David's check-ins. Perhaps she could keep a detailed food diary, not only recording what she prepared, but also how it made her feel physically and emotionally. She envisioned a system where every recipe could be a reflection of her journey in self-discovery, a means to gauge progress not just through the lens of health, but through creativity and joy. Fueled by inspiration, Martha grabbed her notebook once more and began outlining potential entries. Flavors that resonated with nostalgia, textures that thrilled her senses, and meals that reflected her evolving relationship with food. With every written entry, she recognized an empowering truth. She was no longer a victim of her dietary restrictions. She was becoming a creator, an artist with her experiences feeding into her creations. The kitchen around her pulsed with life, the simmering garlic in the pan offering an inviting aroma, reminding her of the comfort food she most cherished. As she melded those flavors into her next dish, she wondered if she could eventually host a gathering, reveling in the joy of bringing others into her world of culinary discovery. But before she lost herself in daydreams, a knock interrupted her reverie. Jake stood at her door, an unannounced arrival that surprised her. She had expected a reply perhaps in a day or two, not to face him immediately. The prospect both thrilled and unnerved her. "Hey, got your email," he called, his tone bright with curiosity. "Can I come in?" As she opened the door wider, excitement coursed through her, mingling with apprehension. This was the moment she had prepared for. Would it shatter or elevate her burgeoning confidence? Martha's breath caught for just a moment, poised on the edge of a critical boundary. "Come in," she invited, the warmth of her kitchen wrapping around them as he stepped over the threshold. The moment felt like a pivotal juncture, each second stretched with potential. Would she be victorious in her endeavor, or would the past cast a shadow over her progress? The answer remained just out of reach, teasingly close yet eerily uncertain. "Let us taste where your creativity has taken you," Jake said, his grin encouraging her to delve into the unknown. Martha took a deep breath, knowing she was about to confront not just the flavors of her dishes, but the very essence of her transformation as well. Martha's heart swelled, a tumultuous mix of excitement and anxiety swirling within her as she led Jake to the small dining area, her sanctuary of culinary exploration. The lingering scent of garlic had intensified, casting a fragrant spell over her kitchen. The moment felt monumental, not just for the dish she was about to serve, but for the narrative she was forging with each step forward. "Wow, it smells incredible in here," Jake remarked, his eyes glistening with genuine enthusiasm, igniting a spark of confidence in Martha. She invited him to sit at the table draped in a simple but inviting cloth, vibrant hues echoing the colors of the Mediterranean. As she plated the lemon herb chicken with precision, nuanced motions reflecting her newfound understanding of attention to detail, her mind flickered back to her culinary dreams. Each component of the dish felt like a brushstroke on the canvas of her ambition, her own reimagined self. With careful presentation, she centered the quinoa salad, vibrant and alive, ensuring that every color had its place. "So, what inspired you to create this dish?" Jake inquired, leaning in closer with curiosity. It felt like an invitation not only to share, but to validate her journey thus far. Taking a breath, Martha found her voice with surprising clarity. "Travel has allowed me to explore flavors I never thought I'd appreciate. This dish is a reflection of that, portraying not just tastes, but my growth. Cooking has become a way for me to reclaim my power over my health." Jake nodded, his expression a mix of admiration and intrigue. This was uncharted territory for Martha. Revealing her heartfelt aspirations felt like unveiling a secret garden she had nurtured in silence. She understood now that vulnerability was key to growth, an opening she was willing to embrace. "Reclaiming power through cooking, that's profound," he said thoughtfully. "How do you feel about it?" A wave of hesitation washed over her, the old narratives teasing at the edges of her confidence, but she fought them back. "It makes me feel alive, like I'm taking charge of each moment." It's not just about nourishing my body. It's about rejoicing in flavors and memories. Jake smiled, encouraging her with an approving nod as she handed him a fork. Let us see if the flavors deserve that confidence. He teased lightly, yet the sincerity behind his eyes made her heart flutter. As he took the first bite, silence fell between them, laden with tension. Martha watched, virtually holding her breath. Would her effort resonate with him? Would he taste the essence of her transformation? Unbeknownst to him, this meal was a bridge one crossing from the Martha who had doubted herself to the woman who was ready to embrace feedback, both constructive and celebratory. Martha noticed the way Jake closed his eyes momentarily as he savored the dish. Anticipation tightened her chest. Finally, he opened his eyes, a delight spilling from his lips. This is amazing. The flavors are vibrant, and the salad perfectly complements the chicken. You've captured a whole narrative in one meal. His words washed over her, expansive and warm, pushing aside the rusted remnants of self-doubt. Thank you, she replied, her voice steady, an understanding blossoming within her. This moment marked a welcome turning point. She was no longer merely crafting dishes in the shadows of her insecurities, but stepping boldly into the light of her culinary journey. I can't wait to see what else you create, he added, enthusiasm brimming in his voice. A thought sparked in Martha's mind, one that sent a thrill of excitement coursing through her veins. What if this was the beginning of a series of kitchen gatherings? A celebration of flavors and friendship unearthing her resilience, shared with others who could learn from her journey, those who could inspire her as she inspired them. Maybe I could host some tastings or cooking classes, showcasing the healing properties of food, she mused aloud, her mind already racing ahead to possibilities. Jake leaned in, intrigued. That sounds incredible. You have so much to offer. Martha felt the energy shift in the room, the weight of her old losses lifting gradually, leaving in their wake bold plans sprouting forth. But just as quickly as the thrill enveloped her, a flicker of dread breached the surface. Sudden doubts pricked at the seams of her excitement. Could she sustain this newfound momentum? Okay, step by step, she reassured herself silently, noting the measures she needed to take to craft her culinary narrative purposefully. At the same time, her gaze drifted to the freshly sketched entries in her food diary, each one a mirror reflecting her evolving relationship with food, creativity, and herself. As she proposed the idea to Jake, anticipation dripped from her words. Yet, an undercurrent of doubt lingered. What if her aspirations were met with ambivalence? Or worse, failure? Martha felt as if she stood again at a precipice, ready to jump into the unknown. But the thrill had started to fade, the fears creeping back. Would she find support in the very venture she was keen on launching, or would apprehension hold her back once more? The weight of this impending decision loomed heavy, yet she knew she would have to confront it. Let us definitely talk about it further, Jake affirmed, his interest piqued. But as Martha smiled, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling bubbling beneath the surface. Would she indeed manifest her grand plans or succumb to her previous patterns? The window of opportunity flickered tantalizingly before her, but the shadows of her past still lingered, taunting her with whispers of doubt. So what's next? Jake asked, eyes sparkling with curiosity, propelling Martha to reflect on the balance of fear and possibility that rested tightly within her grasp. As she considered her response, a thought flashed like a bolt of lightning in her mind. Could she finally let go of the past that held her back? The moment felt electric, the horizon of her new path unfolding even as shadows of uncertainty loomed ahead, inviting further exploration. Martha sat across from Jake, the remnants of the meal scattered between them, a symbolic reflection of the chaos and potential occupying her mind. Each utensil clinked softly in the intimate silence, a metronome to her racing thoughts. Her heart raced with possibilities, yet the shadows of self-doubt darkened her excitement. She stirred the residual quinoa on her plate, contemplating how to take her newfound momentum and align it with the vibrant landscape of her dreams. Why not start small? She pondered internally. How about hosting an informal gathering first? The thought shot through her mind like a wildfire, igniting her enthusiasm, but was overshadowed by concerns. What if no one came? What if they didn't enjoy her cooking? The quiet recesses of her mind devolved into a battle, where her self-critique flared up with electric intensity. Are you all right? Jake's voice snapped her back to the present. His brow knit with concern urged Martha to engage fully in the moment. You seem miles away. Yes, just thinking, she replied, attempting to tether herself to the conversation. How did she explain the tumult of emotions, the eager yearning for change countered by the deeply embedded fears of failure? Thinking about what? Jake pressed gently. The sincerity in his question felt both enlightening and intimidating, as if he could see beyond her bravado and into the swirling tempest of her self-doubt. I'm imagining Martha hesitated, weighing the potential and relevance of her aspirations before her mind could detour into the familiar path of insecurity. What if I began hosting cooking classes, small ones, to share my journey and the lessons I've learned? The excitement in her voice surged back, but so did the warning whispers. That's a fantastic idea. Jake's enthusiasm shocked her. He leaned closer, reflective of his investment in her narrative. You have so much knowledge and passion to share. You could inspire others. She smiled, but the glimmer of joy felt fragile against her uncertainty. I don't know if I can maintain that energy, though. Each word felt like stone, anchoring her to the doubt she fought so diligently against. Energy is contagious, he replied, and passion reignites. You'll find a rhythm. You just have to take that leap. Jake's encouragement struck a chord within her. Martha began to visualize her kitchen alive with conversation and laughter, a canvas where her love for food and connection could flourish. Heads nodding in understanding as she guided them through recipes, each person absorbing her philosophy of healing through cuisine. But then came the questions, jagged shards of doubt piercing her enthusiasm. Who would come to my classes? How would I even begin to organize something like this? Step by step, right? Jake chimed in, reading her mind. Start with a plan. What recipes do you want to showcase? What format feels right for you? Martha exhaled slowly, confronting the roiling thoughts occupying her mind. She could create a plan, a blueprint that would solidify the sparks firing in her imagination. Yet, as she mentally sorted through her recipes, one crucial realization surfaced. She had never taught anyone before. What if she was unprepared? Doubt clawed at the edges of her declared confidence as her mind flitted from the lofty potential of a cooking class to the mundane chaos of her everyday life. Let us brainstorm together, Jake suggested, favoring her with a reassuring smile. What keeps your heart racing when you think about teaching? Had she ever truly considered how to frame her teaching approach? The community aspect, sharing knowledge, the joy of cooking together, she replied, a hint of passion igniting in her tone. Then build on that, he encouraged. What is one dish that speaks to you? Something that tells a beautiful story? Martha's eyes lit up, a vivid picture emerging in her mind. The comforting aroma of her mother's butternut squash soup emerged, a dish that had always represented warmth, love, and the triumph of nurturing through food. It felt like the perfect entry point, a humble base to bridge her past and reconnect with her culinary identity. That could be the first class, she murmured. A meal steeped in memory. Exactly, Jake said, his enthusiasm infectious. That is storytelling at its finest. As they fleshed out the concept, Martha felt a newfound determination stirring within her. This could be her opportunity to weave her personal narrative into the fabric of her culinary identity. The shackles of her self-doubt loosened, freeing her to envision prospects unfurling before her. However, with each forward step, a feeling of dread coiled around her heart. The past echoed, reminding her of uncertainty. What if it flops? What if no one shows up? Or what if people love it? Jake countered smoothly. What if you find your groove and it transforms you and those who attend? Martha took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. You're right. I need to trust myself and just start. But even as clarity reached her, the tempest of uncertainty brewed deep within. The future held potential, yet the specter of failure loomed larger than ever. How could she keep moving forward when each step prompted the question of her abilities? Let us set a date for that first class, Jake encouraged, preparing to wrap up their time together. The urgency in his voice challenged her internally. Would she step boldly into this new chapter or let fear defer her dreams yet again? Okay, she replied hesitantly, her mind racing with the implications of her commitment. I'll set a date, but what if anxiety overwhelms me when it's time to teach? The pivotal moment solidified before her, excitement intertwining with trepidation, an expansive horizon shadowed by uncertainty, all hinging on what awaited them next. Would she rise to the occasion and fulfill her aspirations, or would the ghosts of her self-doubt cloud her path? Jake leaned back in his chair, an encouraging light in his eyes. Let us get this plan brewing. We'll tackle it together. Martha felt a mix of exhilaration and dread align within her. It was time to confront the shadows that had stifled her for so long and step into the dizzying chaos of growth that beckoned her. The horizon was vast, laden with potential, yet how she navigated that expanse lay entirely in her hands. As Jake's gaze met hers, the decision loomed. The moment of truth approached, rippling with possibilities and fraught with tension. Would she dare to plunge into the unknown, bravely embracing her vulnerabilities and pursuing her culinary aspirations? The answer awaited, teetering on the brink of enthusiasm. The days that followed felt like a strange liminal space for Martha. Each morning, she awakened with a sense of enthusiasm that flickered like a candle in a draft, a glow met by the persistent chill of self-doubt. Each time she entered her kitchen, the memories of warmth and connection filled her with a bittersweet nostalgia. As she began to plan the cooking class, she collected her favorite recipes, infusing them with the stories behind each dish. Yet a nagging fear surfaced: what if they weren't good enough? How could she share these personal tales without collapsing under the weight of her insecurities? A week passed, and as she stood in front of her refrigerator, the realization settled like a stone in her stomach. She had set a date. The daunting specter of her first class loomed closer, and Martha found herself battling a fresh wave of anxiety. She pulled the butternut squash from the produce drawer, fingers brushing over its rough skin. This would be the centerpiece of her narrative, the transition from memory to practice. But how could she effectively lead others through this experience when she felt so adrift herself? Determined to combat her spiraling thoughts, Martha reached for her notebook and penned down tips and insights for the class. Show excitement, demonstrate the cooking techniques, emphasize safety, she wrote. Yet, crawling beneath the layers of her meticulous planning was the insistent thought: who would show up? Would they leave disappointed? As she scribbled her insecurities next to ambitious aspirations, tension built like a pressure cooker on the verge of exploding. The clock ticked relentlessly. She had scheduled the class for a Saturday afternoon, giving herself merely a week to prepare not just her recipes, but also her own resolve to withstand the scrutiny of others. Her initial adrenaline rush transformed into a frigid certainty, an icy familiarity that held her captive in familiar fears. "Jake," she called, seeking the same reassurance he had offered before. They met at a local coffee shop, the familiar aroma of roasted coffee filling the air. He looked up with the kind of warm anticipation that sparked a glimmer of hope within her. As they settled into a booth, the chatter around them morphed into white noise, a sensory distraction that faded before her resolve. "How is the planning going?" he asked, casually stirring his drink, eyes bright with unending support. "Overwhelmingly okay when it's not terrifying," she confessed, dipping her head and taking a breath. "I should be excited, but my mind keeps spiraling into worst-case scenarios." "Timelines can create pressure," he said, leaning in slightly, lowering his voice as if they were sharing an intimate secret. "What is your biggest fear about the class?" Martha's gaze drifted, searching for comfort in the scuff marks on the table. "I guess failing to connect with people. What if they see I'm not a real chef, but merely someone who loves to cook? What if my stories about the recipes fall flat?" Jake's expression turned thoughtful. "You're not just a chef, you're a storyteller. Will you let fear of judgment overshadow your passion?" His words pulsed within her, igniting both anger and determination. "No, I won't let fear stop me. If I'm passionate about sharing, that's enough," she proclaimed, surprised by the intensity behind her own voice. "Exactly," Jake encouraged. "Channel that energy into something meaningful. Set a goal for yourself, engage them, share your heart, and let the rest worry about themselves." The resolve rippled through her, bubbling up against the tide of anxiety. She realized that, while she was sharing recipes, her true offering was her journey, her vulnerability. The idea crackled within her like static electricity. Each person's unique culinary experience would reflect something deeply human. She didn't need to be a renowned chef. She simply needed to be herself. I'll focus on the connection, she resolved aloud, envisioning each participant as a friendly face rather than a judging critic. They would be there to learn, to share in her love for food, and to immerse themselves in the comforting nostalgia she had crafted within that humble bowl of butternut squash soup. As they wrapped up their conversation, Martha felt a stirring clarity that hadn't graced her thoughts before. The prospect of failure was only a prelude to a multitude of stories waiting to be told. She mentally summoned the resolve to embrace any uncertainty, pledging to step into this role authentically. Days blurred into a countdown, and when Saturday finally arrived, a cool wave of apprehension washed over her. Martha stood in her kitchen staring at the neatly arranged ingredients for her class. The moment had come she would transform her vulnerability into an invitation for connection. With a deep breath, she filled the kitchen with comforting aromas while crafting her welcome message in her mind. Today marked not just the start of a cooking class, but also the first step in reclaiming her narrative. As the clock ticked toward the scheduled hour, an unexpected text pinged her phone, sending a jolt of anxiety through her. It was a message from an old acquaintance, one she hadn't seen in years. "I heard about your class. Can't wait to see what you make of it." Martha's heart pounded. Would this familiar face ignite more tension or support? The room suddenly felt smaller, the stakes higher, her resolve wavering. Intrepid she had intended to be, but with each tick of the clock, the air thickened, heavy with unspoken anticipation. Who could truly be the judge of her aspirations? Would this old acquaintance serve as a reminder of her insecurities or as a testament to her growth? The answer hovered tantalizingly close, intensifying the stakes of her culinary endeavor. Martha's breath quickened as the minutes inched toward the start of her class. It felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, the ocean of uncertainty swirling far below. She clutched her phone tightly, staring at the message that felt like both an invitation and a challenge. Memories of shared meals and laughter with that old acquaintance flooded her, mingling with instinctual fears. What if they remembered her not as a chef, but as the clumsy girl who spilled sauce everywhere? What if the stories she had cultivated resonated not with nostalgia, but with judgment? She shook her head, consciously shifting her thoughts. Unfolding her notebook, she repeatedly recited her mantra. Today was about connection, not perfection. The first students trickled through the door, their cheerful greetings enveloping the space like a soft blanket. Martha welcomed them with as much warmth as she could muster, her nerves dancing just beneath the surface. She guided each person to their station. Her kitchen had transformed into a hub of creativity, marked by cutting boards, fresh ingredients, and budding relationships. As the class began, she could feel the story of the butternut squash soup unfolding, each cutting move a line of dialogue, each ingredient a character joining the narrative. She demonstrated the peeling, narrating how the squash had been her grandmother's favorite, hinting at bond-building over seasonal flavors. The familiar weight of self-doubt began to lift with every smile and attentive gaze directed her way. Yet, just as confidence started to blossom, a familiar voice broke through the chatter, sending a shiver of anxiety down her spine. "Martha, is that you?" It was Clara, the friend from high school. The girl who once perfected flawless soufflés, while she tripped over her own culinary ambitions. Martha forced a smile, battling the surge of old insecurities. "Clara, so glad you could make it." Her voice steadied just enough to reflect a welcoming facade. Clara's presence loomed large, an apparition from the past, seemingly judging the growth Martha had only recently begun to claim. As the class continued, Martha poured energy into engaging her new students, navigating through techniques and emotional stories. She caught glimpses of Clara at the back of the room, jotting down notes, but sometimes her gaze lingered a heartbeat too long. Self-doubt crept back, whispering that Clara's judgment mattered more than any applause from a stranger. Was she truly so caught up in narratives that her skills paled under scrutiny? The weight of that question hung heavily on her mind, like an albatross of comparison. Midway through a demonstration, Martha paused. It struck her that this was what Jake had meant. She needed to channel her fear into authenticity. She cleared her throat, willing herself to connect. "I want to share something." This was a risk, revealing vulnerability in the middle of her class, but the prospect of genuine connection outweighed the shadows of doubt. "I remember feeling so lost in the kitchen," she admitted, her voice slightly wavering. Cooking has been a journey for me, shifting from one who hides in the corner to one who embraces the mess. She glanced around, searching faces for signs of acceptance. I still mismeasure ingredients sometimes. She laughed lightly, heartily flipping her hair, trying to dissolve tension. But what matters is our connection over food and our willingness to keep trying. ASMT it. The room filled with appreciative laughter, and for a fleeting moment, Martha could almost believe that this was her true calling. She engaged with each participant on a personal level, sharing tidbits of her own culinary misadventures, each one a stepping stone towards self-acceptance. Just as the vibe shifted toward excitement, Clara raised her hand. But what if you're just not good enough? I mean, who wouldn't question that about their own journey? Martha felt her insides tighten, the air shifting again. It was a direct hit at her core. How could she respond without exposing her vulnerabilities while simultaneously combating her own fears of inadequacy? The moment demanded clarity, yet the ground beneath her felt unsteady. The risk of failure once again loomed ominously close. Would she freeze or rise to the occasion? Could she confront that piercing question and transform it into a lesson for both Clara and herself? The stakes had never felt higher, and all eyes were suddenly upon her. As she took a deep breath, contemplating her response, uncertainty intertwined with the burgeoning resolve planted throughout the class. What revelation awaited just beyond the threshold of fear? Martha stared into the sea of expectant faces, each person holding their breath, waiting for her response. The doubt lingered like a fog, but within that uncertainty, a resolute fire sparked inside her. This wasn't merely about proving her worth. It was about sharing her journey, embracing every scar and triumph that had led her to this moment. Clara, I appreciate your honesty. It's easy to doubt ourselves, especially when stepping into new territories. I've grappled with those same questions. Her voice, grounded, yet honest, resonated with the audience. But what I've learned is that cooking, like life, isn't about perfection. It's about authenticity, creativity, and the willingness to take risks. The restlessness in the room shortened as Martha continued, her heart pounding with renewed determination. Every time we step into a kitchen, we enter a space of possibilities. Mistakes don't define us. They illuminate paths to growth. The burnt edges and lumpy sauces are proof that we're trying to create something special, a unique blend of our experiences and choices. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The weight of her journey pressed against her chest, yet every word felt liberating as she stood firm in her truth. The energy shifted palpably, and she sensed people gravitating toward her authenticity. There was a collective understanding that emerged, a quiet acknowledgement that all had encountered failures, doubts, and hurdles, a shared humanity blooming before her eyes. I may not have every culinary technique mastered, but I'm willing to explore and adapt, just like each of you. Martha's gaze swept across the room, landing on Clara, who appeared both intrigued and contemplative. Turning our fears into motivations is the real recipe for success, Martha added, a confident smile breaking the once tense atmosphere. She felt self-acceptance envelop her, a rare moment of clarity washing over the previously murky waters of doubt. Inspired by the courage gathered over her statement, Martha leaned back into her role as a facilitator, guiding them through the butternut squash soup preparation. Each interaction became an opportunity to strengthen connections. Tempers softened as laughter rippled through the kitchen, turning the pressure into collaborative joy. As they prepared the soup, Martha divulged more cherished stories, memories lined with herbs of laughter and love swirling into the pot. Clara, once a shadow of her insecurity, engaged more openly, sharing her own kitchen misadventures, and soon, they were bonded not just by past competition, but mutual learning and growth. When it came time to taste the soup, Martha's heart raced. Spoons dipped into the velvety concoction. Each participant's reaction illuminated her spirit, their approval a lighthouse guiding her through her insecurities. "That's delightful," one said, eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Overwhelmed with joy, Martha realized that she was achieving something remarkable. She had transformed her fears into strengths, learning not only to share, but to empower others through her culinary passions. Clara's hand shot up again, but this time, it was only to share a compliment. Martha, I'm really inspired by your approach to teaching. Just being here has motivated me to try more in my kitchen. The class responded with applause, and in that very moment, Martha recognized the profound impact of her journey, not just the dishes, but the connection they fostered. As the class wrapped up, Martha felt buoyed by the experience. She had not only taught them a recipe, but had opened a dialogue filled with warmth, vulnerability, and shared humanity. Opportunities to grow became woven through her culinary tapestry, a journey of continuous improvement embraced with open arms. As she cleaned up, Martha looked at her reflection in the kitchen window, a subtle smile gracing her lips. The past remained a part of her, but it no longer dictated her present. With a clear path ahead, she envisioned her next steps not just as a cooking class, but as the foundation for a flourishing community, a sacred space where joy, connection, and healing unfolded through food. This realization transformed her outlook. She was more than a cook. She was a facilitator of experience, a storyteller entwined with the flavors of life. Committing to teach again felt less like a trial and more like a celebration, one she was eager to share widely. Martha sensed her life transitioning from doubt into a realm of exploration, empowerment, and authenticity. Driven by the hope of what lay ahead, she penned a sign-up sheet for the next gathering, each stroke infused with confidence and eagerness. Emboldened, she stepped into a future full of promise, unburdened by the limitations set by her past. With renewed energy propelling her forward, she embraced her expanded identity, ready to inspire others through her culinary journey. And you, witnessing this moment of transformation, understand the importance of nurturing your own path and encouraging others to rise. It all begins with sharing and connection. So remember, you need to subscribe now to embark on more incredible journeys of transformation and personal growth. Leave a like now to help spread this empowering message and feed the algorithm. Comment below with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Martha's inspiring evolution. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this captivating conclusion. Let us inspire everyone to embrace their journeys of overcoming self-doubt.